Hi, I'm Will from Jerome, and today we're going to take a look at two very interesting ultralight rooftop tents. One of these weighs 100 pounds and another weighs 76 pounds, but they are very different in a lot of ways. You see what I did there? Welcome to the channel. I'm glad you're here. And I think you're going to enjoy taking a look at these two ultralight rooftop tents. But before we get into their differences, let's just talk about why you might want an ultralight tent instead of a traditional rooftop tent. Traditional tents weigh somewhere between 140 and 225 pounds. They have metal frames, metal base plates, and metal lids. And they generally have pretty good struts that help them pop open and close. And they generally feel sturdy. Ultralights are exactly what they sound like. They're a lighter tent. The FSR Aspen Light here weighs in at 100 pounds, and the Inspired rooftop tent here weighs in at 76 pounds. That's a 40 to over 100-pound weight difference between these tents and normal rooftop tents.
This is Lance demonstrating that you can put this tent on and off single-handedly with one person.
But there are trade-offs. Anytime you're pushing weight, you're shedding materials, mainly anything metal, and that means a little less stability, less insulation, and in some cases, a little bit less comfort. So why would you do it? Well, for one, it opens up the playing field for mounting a rooftop tent on different kinds of vehicles, like non-standard overlanding vehicles, for example, a Subaru, a RAV4, a Honda CR-V, or even a minivan or a passenger vehicle. I mean, let's face it, those of us who go out a lot have seen those cars out on the trail almost every place we've gone. So why can't they have a rooftop tent too? Well, at 76 to 100 pounds, these tents might be light enough to mount on factory luggage racks. Now, don't quote me on that. Definitely look at the weight capacity and be your own best judge of what will work for your rig. But my point is, you can get away with a lot more when the tents are this light. Second, having a light tent on top of your car is a very good thing when you're going off-road. Any additional weight that you put on top raises your center of gravity, which is not good when you're in off-camber situations. Also, it puts more strain on your drivetrain, your suspension, and virtually every other part of your vehicle. So imagine being off-road and going just a little bit too fast over a whoop, right? Now imagine having 225 pounds on top of your vehicle when you hit that whoop. It goes from a whoop to a whoop bang. Lastly, saving weight helps with gas mileage. The less you weigh, the better gas mileage you get. So lighter is often better, but we do enjoy some of those creature comforts, insulation, and overall protection from the elements that heavier tents offer. So the question is, can you have the best of both worlds? Well, let's find out. This is the Inspired Overland Rooftop Tent, and at 76 pounds, it's the lightest tent I've ever seen. It's priced between $1,000 and $1,350 or so, depending on whether or not you pick it up directly from them or have it shipped to you. This is the FSR Aspen Light, which is also an extremely lightweight tent at 100 pounds. It's priced around $2,500, although recently I've seen it on sale for closer to $2,000. And what you'll notice is it has this interior pop-out design here in the front. This probably adds a little bit of weight to the design, but it gives you more usable space in the interior, which I'll talk about later. The thing that probably saves the most weight in both these designs is their use of a skeleton aluminum frame. Now, I don't know if skeleton is the right technical word, but it's how I think about it. So it's like a bare bones approach, essentially. Imagine this to be the floor of each rooftop tent, the base plate. Well, instead of having this solid piece of metal, what they do is they cut out slats. And so they shave all that weight off, and what's left is kind of a bare bones frame that still has the structural integrity that you need to sleep on it, but isn't as solid feeling. So what they do is they lay a layer of high density foam over the top of that, and then they lay the mattress over that. So you get a pretty soft, comfortable sleeping feel when you're in these tents, but you don't get that kind of solid floor feeling. Like you wouldn't want to like stand up in these things because one of your feet might go through the slats. The biggest differences between these two rooftop tents has to do with the focus of their design. Now, the Inspired focused on weight all the way. Every choice they made was about shaving weight, and they really pushed the envelope here, and it shows. It's the lightest rooftop tent I've ever seen. The folks over at FSR focused their design choices on making a light rooftop tent, but making it look and feel and even function like a normal rooftop tent. And in some ways, they really nailed it, but it's not as light as the Inspired, and neither tent is perfect. Spoiler alert, no tent is perfect. There are a few big differences between the basic frame designs of these two tents. The Inspired has a very light framing material covered by a tonneau-like vinyl covering like you'd see on a truck bed or something, and then it's closed with a YKK zipper, like a taped seam zipper that goes all the way around to open and close it. The Aspen Light, on the other hand, has a much more robust frame structure that even has these C channels or T slots that go all the way around so you can mount things to it. It actually comes with a rack that you can install. Now, the rack doesn't hold a lot, but you could probably get a solar panel or potentially traction boards if you didn't have too many or they weren't too heavy type of traction boards on top of this. So the frame, just the framing on the FSR is quite different. The material is also a tonneau-like material, but while the Inspired uses the vinyl-like tonneau covering, this is a 600D ripstop Oxford that FSR says is completely 100% waterproof, even though it looks like it's a weave. But I've seen tests on it and they pour water directly on it and it beads and falls off. So I'm going to take them at their word that it's waterproof. And instead of a zipper, the FSR uses 4 clamps, 2 here and 1 on each side, that are more like a standard rooftop tent latch system that you'd see. So FSR is really going for the look and feel of a standard rooftop tent, where the Inspired is something completely different. They both have gas struts that help open and close the tent. And they both claim that you can leave bedding inside, but that's a dubious claim. I mean, like, define bedding. So maybe you could leave like a very thin sleeping bag in here, and when you closed it, you'd have like a bulge in the middle. But for all intents and purposes, you shouldn't plan on leaving bedding in here, so know that before you buy. The Inspired also has these extra supports that go up that can give you a little bit more structural support and rigidity in really bad weather. But I haven't needed to use these, and Lance, whose tent this belongs to, has not used it either. So I think those are optional if you need them, but not essential for using the tent. The biggest difference between the framing is that FSR chose to go with this pop-out design, which creates a very different amount of space inside the tent than the Inspired. So how this works is the lid is angled higher in the air, and then there's an internal frame that pops out this way that holds the tent at a better angle for your head. So on the front side of the tent, you have a lot more usable headroom space. And on the foot side, or the hinge side of the tent, that angle is actually opened up more. So you have more usable space there for your feet or for your head, if you could probably even sleep with your head on that end of it. So even though the FSR has a smaller footprint, both externally and internally, than the Inspired, it actually has more usable space on the inside. The Inspired tent is 50 inches wide, 82 inches long, and about 6 inches thick when it's zipped closed. Now, in contrast to that, the Aspen Light here is 49.5 inches wide, so it's a ½ inch more narrow. It's 80 inches long, so it's 2 inches shorter, and it's 7.5 or so inches thick when it's closed. But dimensions can be deceiving, so let's take a look inside. But let's talk about fabrics. So the Inspired has this 2000D polyester with UV treated fabric, which is really thick and really nice. The FSR, on the other hand, has its own proprietary blend. It's called the FSR Tri-Blend, I think. And it feels really thick and really nice. I just can't tell you exactly what's in it. It also has an integrated rain fly that's just kind of tightly pinned over the top of the canvas here, which gives you a little bit of extra protection in the elements. While the Inspired doesn't really have a rain fly, it has more of like a rain shield that comes out that you put in with 2 tension rods. So let's take a look at the mattress in the Inspired. So when you look at this mattress, it's about 1.5 inches thick, and it's decent foam. It then has this anti-condensation mat, and then here is that dense foam I was talking about that sits on top of that skeleton frame. Both tents have this type of a skeleton frame, and then they have this pretty thick foam. The Inspired has an anti-condensation mat. I'm not sure the FSR does, and then this on top. And what you get is a pretty comfortable sleeping area. But let's get inside this tent and let me show you what it's like to be inside. Okay, inside the tent, you've got this pocket organizer, which is great to keep your keys and things in. You've got another one that's up here. You can see there. And it's pretty basic. Now, I'm 6'1", and if I do this like that with my feet kind of pressed up against the canvas, I can fit in here. But if I don't, I can't. So now this is the big drawback of the Inspired tent, is it's just not long enough, or it doesn't have enough room in the foot box. I'm 6'1", and I could sleep in here probably relatively comfortably if I slept diagonal across it. But if you want to get more than one person in here and one of you is over 6 feet, you're going to have to get the XL version, which is 10 pounds heavier and I think 7 or 8 inches longer. I believe it's 90 inches long, which should give you plenty of space to get someone my size and someone else in. So they have solved for that. It's just not in this particular design. One of the things I love about this tent is that it opens up so nicely. It's really nice to just sit here in your perch and have the breeze blowing through and just have kind of all this open space. Oh, you look at things like that really nice looking gladiator over there. I wonder who that belongs to. I should mention there are also 2 built-in shoe bags here. And if you don't want to use them, you roll them up and you can clip them in, but they do not detach. They're always there. So I guess that's kind of nice because you can never forget it. If you're somebody like me who doesn't use these, they don't really get in my way. I don't think about them because they're always tucked up. But if you are someone who likes to use shoe bags, it's nice that they're always there for you. So coming into the FSR tent here, they took a very different approach with the mattress. So this is their mattress. It is an air core mattress. It's inflatable with foam in it. And it's actually really comfortable. When it's inflated, it's about 2 inches thick. I've slept on it a few times and I have zero complaints with how comfortable it is. But I do not like inflatable mattresses at all because even though it's self-inflating, it's also self-deflating. And when I say self, I mean you have to do it yourself. So you got to roll this thing over, press all the air out in order to get it totally deflated and get this thing closed. So they are not my favorite because they take more effort, but this is very comfortable. Underneath here, you'll see there is a foam, a heavy, thick foam. You can't really see it, but it's there. Base plate. It's the same kind of base plate as you see over in the Inspired. It's just covered by the shell. So the base plate is really similar, except that it's covered and there's no anti-condensation mat laying on top of it. And inside this tent is where it really shines. So first of all, the fabrics they use are blackout on the inside. So if you want to sleep in and not have the sun wake you up, you can do that in this tent. It also has these quilted sides here. So the doors are like this quilted kind of insulated material, which just feels really nice. I don't know how to say it other than it has a good kind of luxurious feeling. This same quilt is on the ceiling here, and it also has this really nice organizer with clear pockets. So if you want to, you can lay here and watch a movie at night, which I did with my son just last weekend. We were in this tent. There's plenty of room for both of us. And he was having trouble going to sleep, so we watched an episode of One Piece or something with his iPad tucked in that clear pocket, and it was a lot of fun. He fell asleep with his head on my shoulder, and it was a great night. And you can see the extra headspace here from the pop-out gives you a lot more room, usable space, and sleeping areas. And as you can see, I can tuck my feet almost all the way up to the hinges there, and still not be touching too bad. Now just a little bit back and my feet don't touch at all. So I can easily fit in here at 6'1", even though the interior dimensions of this tent are actually smaller than the Inspired. There is a place here where you can run a heater or an air conditioner tube inside your tent. There is a nice little pocket here on the, near the foot box. And then there are pockets on either side of the front of the tent, which are big enough for iPads and keys and water bottles and all that stuff. So I gotta hand it to FSR. The inside of this tent definitely feels more luxurious and more kind of insulated and stable than the Inspired tent, but it's more expensive and it's heavier. I should also mention that the FSR also has 2 boot bags that can be detached though. Those are strapped on. You can unhook those and you don't have to bring them, but you can leave them on permanently if you want to. So they just roll up with the rest of the tent. And if you want to, you can just leave them on there, never worry about them. But if you're like me and you don't like boot bags, you can take them off and also never worry about them. So which of these tents should you buy? Well, that's an easy one. The answer is it depends. If you want a super light, no frills approach at a great price point, that's the Inspired tent. If you want something that's a little more luxurious, that has the look, feel, and functionality that's closer to normal rooftop tents, well, that's the FSR, but it's double or more the price. So budget has to come into play as well. However, Both companies have done a fantastic job at pushing us in the right direction in overlanding, which is more functionality, less weight. If you're interested in either of these tents, there is a link in the description below. Until then, I'm Will from Venture to Rome. Thanks for watching.